bass, rock steady ska, reggae dance.
Good evening and welcome to another community forum. I'm your host Byron Campbell and our co-host Chris Diali. Chris is overseas. Chris, are you there? Good evening.
Good evening, Byron. I'm here.
It's good to see you.
Same. Good evening to our viewers. Welcome again to another program.
Great. This evening we have, as you know, the hurricane season has begun, 1st of June, and the predictions are not very good. That's the forecast is not very good. And we have our special guest this evening, Dr. Terence Walters. He's, of course, the CEO for NAGMA. So he will join us later. Chris, there's a lot happening around. First of all, of course, we have a United Nations Security Council resolution for the first time. Of course, this was presented by the United States. It was supported. Only Russia abstained, but certainly didn't vote against it. So that Security Council is the first Security Council resolution to pass on the Gaza war. But interesting is in 3 phases. It calls for an immediate ceasefire, the release of hostages, Israeli hostages, and the exchange of Palestinian prisoners, and ultimately a permanent end to the hostilities, and a full withdrawal of the Israeli forces from Gaza, as well as effective distribution of the aid and a major multi-year reconstruction of the strip, that is of the Gaza community. This is significant, but of course the parties have not yet signed on to it fully. But this resolution is significant in the face of things because you're looking at over 38,000 people killed, thousands, tens of thousands of women and children. This is. What's your thoughts on it, Chris? This particular development.
Well, I am hopeful. However, I know that Hamas have given certain terms and conditions, which concerns me in the fact that whether this ceasefire remains permanent and they could do what they intend to do. Israel have not seemed to accede to some of the conditions that Hamas want to sign on to the ceasefire with. So it remains a kind of open situation still. But at the end of the day, what is positive is that all these major nations like the United States and Europe and France and so on seem to have agreed that this is the right way to go, and hopefully they could pressure Hamas and Oman and Egypt and all of them who have been in the negotiations could get them to come on board. I want to raise one point on this though, Byron, and that is the fact that as more nations give Palestine and recognize them as a state, the Palestinian people get the opportunity to now negotiate as a full state and have the rights to, enter into legal arrangements, have the rights to be recognized for aid and a lot of other things that would give them status as a state, as Israel have status as a recognized state. So that is also an important development coming alongside what is happening with this possible peace initiative.
Interestingly, related to that, last month when we had the Palestinian ambassador with us, we learned that they scheduled a delegation of Palestinian doctors, medical specialists, to visit Grenada. I'm to understand that this is happening later this month. So it's interesting. We'll know more about this. And they'll be here to, of course, perform operations and other medical support to the public. Chris, moving regionally, of course, OECS is celebrating 40 years anniversary. It's a big deal. I think this was during the revolution, I recall. It was Maurice Bishop who signed the agreement, putting us with the OECS. A lot of development have taken place there presently. What's your take on the anniversary? Why should we celebrate this?
I think it's proper. It's proper to recognize the 40 years of establishing the OECS states. We have made a lot of progress if you were to compare us to CARICOM and what we have achieved in that 40 years. We have one single currency. We have one single central bank. We have a regional security system. We have issues, not issues, but we have regional court. We have situations with sharing of information when it relates to purchasing of drugs and all of that for the region. We could travel within OECS countries on a license if necessary, and we don't have our passport. So we have made significant progress over that 40 years in uniting the OECS states. The one major challenge we still have is transport within the OECS countries with the demise of the year 1974 and what we see now happening with the current airlines with Intercaribbean and so on, that the reliability is in question. But outside of that, I think as a OECS set of countries, we have trade, and we trade relatively easy, no major barriers, and so on. So we have made real significant progress, and we need to highlight that because as a Caribbean people, we're not very famous for uniting. And the famous Eric Williams statement, 1 from 10 is 0, is an important stride that we have made in the OECS.
Talk about our currency too. Chris, let's talk money a bit. Last year, the CBI program, we understood, raised over $380 million. 2023. That's a lot of money. You're involved in that program before. What's your take on it? Are we likely to see continued increases in this sector in terms of income?
Well, I think it's significant in terms of the money raised because it helps. What we don't do very well in CBI, even up to now, is talk a lot about how we use the money for national development and other areas in the country. And this is something we need to do a little more. But it also shows that there are investment areas in the country that we can develop through CBI funding. And the current CBI funding is not like we take a loan and we have to pay interest. It's almost free money. People may question the fact that we've given up citizenships for it, but some of the investors that come also get the opportunity to invest in some of the projects and make returns on the money invested. So when you look at some of these things, you can say it's almost a win-win. The challenge we face going forward is the reputation of the programs in the region and the countries that are engaged and how we manage that and the security aspects of it. Grenada has an excellent 4-layer security system that works well for us. The program seems to be well accepted by a lot of countries, and we seem to be getting a lot of interest still in the program, and I think it's something that we need to protect and move along, so that it becomes one of the pillars of our GDP and what we could get from it in that sense. I would like to see it expand to some of the non-traditional areas. We currently have it in tourism and that sector. I would like to see it expand to areas like agriculture, which needs a serious boost. How could we get it into agro-processing? That is another area that I think if we could direct funding there, we have the traditional area of ICT and so on. I would like to suggest how we could get AI development and get funding for projects in those areas and even sport. Mm-hmm. So these are areas that I think we could expand the program and see how it can help push the country in areas, particular areas.
Chris, related to money, there are a lot of complaints now about non-functioning, out-of-order ATMs. I mean, people come from Gove, they say, look, it's not working. They go to St. George, it's not working. They go Granance. I mean, if you look at that ATM, for example, in Lagoon Road, so many times, I mean, you have to guess whether an ATM is working or not. Some banks you go into and all 3 ATMs, for example, is out of order. Why do we have this particular problem now? Because this is an important technological advancement that we've gotten used to, and we expect them to work. We expect them to function when we go there, albeit we are paying for them. What, in your view, is causing this technical malfunction, if we could call it that? I mean...
Well, I know some of the financial institutions have had concerns with the machines that they have. Some of the machines that are in use now are outdated, quite frankly, and they need to change them. The technology have moved along. The technology with our notes, our current notes, is not like what we had before when we were using the paper notes and so on. So the technology have significantly improved and moved along. some of the financial institutions, I'm told, have machines ready to install, but some of the software platforms are not fully ready to accept, and that is part of the challenges. So I think there is need for the institutions to really get their act in order quickly, because here are the institutions that are saying to us as customers that we need to go outside. We don't want you inside the brick and mortar as before. We offer you this technology and independence to go to your machine, manage your finances,
Yeah.
make deposits, withdraw, and reduce the amount of tellers and so on inside the banks and save them costs in the front end, although there will be costs for operating the machines in the back end. But at the end of the day, it gives customers greater flexibility to have access to their money at 24/7. So you cannot have machines not available if you're saying this is the direction you want to go. So I believe the financial institutions have to make a greater effort to ensure that this particular this particular facility that they have given to the customers throughout the country needs to be operational to the point where breakdowns or no use of the machines have to become a thing of the past, in the sense that that must happen very rare because of what we are pushing now in terms of digitalization and flexibility for customers.
Chris, there's another organization celebrating 40 years this year or this month, and that's NULO, New Life Organization in Palmis. And I want to recognize this organization, and it's presently under the leadership of Sister Margaret. And this organization, they moved initially from over 5 programs to 18 programs. And I've worked with them, and before in the starting, you used to see who's attending the program. Used to be dropouts and young people that didn't make it fully into the secondary school. Not so now. They are tracking. In other words, their training now is CVQs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 certification, and you have graduates even from TAMCC or other secondary institutions going to attend a NULO program. So I want to, they've been doing a marvelous, absolutely excellent job over the years, and I want to congratulate them on this 40-year anniversary and celebration. Critical organization, and it's an organization worthy of significant government support, particularly as we talk about technical training for young people. What's your thoughts here?
Myron, I couldn't have said it better. I think they need to be given the maximum kudos necessary for their commitment and stickability over the years to attract young people who, in those days, 40 years ago, we were taught developing a skill wasn't the best way to go in terms of supporting yourself and your family, because you were traditional and had a traditional mindset of, you have to become a lawyer, an accountant, an engineer, doctor, and those traditional professions. Here it is, we recognize now that skills, whether it is block laying or whatever the skill, electronics, electrical wiring, and so on, is so important, air conditioning, for the functioning of our society in general.
Yeah.
And I think that is, something that we have to praise. And I would support giving all the support they can get financially and otherwise to facilitate and understand that we need to continue ensuring that some of our young people have avenues where they can get qualified on the CBQ level at whatever level they choose to go into, and make a decent, honest living and a good one.
Yeah.
Some of the service providers in plumbing and so on in Grenada today, who may have gone through NULO or otherwise, are doing extremely well, and there is a constant need for good, skilled people as the society improves and grows. Construction is doing very well in Grenada, and without proper carpenters and plumbers and bricklayers and so on, and it offers opportunity for single mothers as well, who do very well and sometimes better than the men. So I congratulate and I take my hats off to them.
Yeah, and particularly I want to recognize the contribution they've made to the hospitality industry. If you go into the hotels, there's so many graduates there from NULO. Congratulations, NULO. Chris, I'm getting information that the Molinier project, the new road is taking shape and is due to open soon. What are you hearing? But before you answer me, Chris, here's the thing. I want to make a point here because right now for the past 2 years, 3 years since the road fell away, you've had to pass through Mount Morris and then go into Jones Road, which is a about 1.5 miles. But this road now is in urgent need of repairs. A lot of potholes, a lot of breakaway with the concrete. The government should urgently look at this bypass road as it is, because it's still being used. So this is a heads up for the Montmorris Jones Road. It needs urgent attention. But Chris, what are you hearing about the Molinier Road and its reopening, completion?
I think the Minister for Implementation, MIT, indicated that July would see us having use of the road, and I don't know if it will be fully open, but at least be available for use for traffic. And he was quite clear that, this is long in coming, and it is a critical road for, the use on the western side of the country. Also linked to that, remember in the last government, they were planning to do serious upgrades to the western main road, but then Molinier kind of upset the program, and they had to concentrate on Molinier to get that important vein back and operational. But there are some interesting gains apart from the Montmorris pressure on those roads, and for the transporters like the busmen and so on, and trucks that can pass. I think the opening of the road up in Bolio, forget the name of that one, that ends up in
Monkuma.
That's right. Monkuma, that comes out on the bridge by
Grenville Vale.
Grenville Vale is
Yes.
also a good development. We've seen that
Absolutely.
develop and given us access to another road from the middle of the country to the western side. So I think all of those, yes, the Molinier Road was long in coming, and we have spent, I think it's $12 million or more in adjusting designs and so on.
Yeah.
And, that is significant, but it gives us now more access to more roads, which is a good thing in that sense. And I really hope that the minister is correct in that we get that very important vein that links us from St. George's into the western side open as soon as possible, and we could start seeing the benefits of all the investments that we have made as a small country to get that road back up in operation.
So we wait and see, but in the meantime, we're saying let's fix that bypass road. Chris, the final thing, because we have to move on to a special guest. When you look at crime and punishment, based on the news on the broadcast, the police have been making some major inroads in terms of arrests and charges and so forth, and many of the crimes that's taking place. Kudos to the police, Royal Grenadian Police Force.
Yes, I always say, Byron, that our nation continues to be safe because our police does outstanding work in their investigations and bringing perpetrators to arresting them and bringing them to the justice system for their particular processing. At the end of the day, yes, we have more violence. Probably we have a little more murders than normal, but Grenada is still considered a very safe destination because we don't have the criminals doing their stuff and not paying for what they do. And the resolution of crimes in Grenada remain very high in the 80s and 90s percentage, which is something that we have to commend the police based on the little and resources they use in order to get these prosecutions and these people arrested and so on. So kudos to them. I know they have gotten a lot of criticisms. We have, expressed concerns in certain areas, but we need to give kudos where it's required. And I think they're doing an excellent job, the women and men of the Royal Grenada Police Force, in the resolution of crimes and keeping our country safe and giving our citizens the assurance and confidence that we're not having these guys running loose and wanting to do what they have to do. Yes, we do have an issue with the gang situation and the violence within them. And I know there's an initiative that we're going to talk about, Byron, in one of our programs, which is the initiative by the Law Association and the president, and what they're doing for the peace and between these gangs, and some of the programs have started appearing on, which we fully support. But at the end of the day, I want to just concentrate on the police force and give them all the kudos that they need in the job that they do with the limited resources.
The only thing I want to add here, Chris, is I want to remind the authorities that we need to pay attention to the accommodation, the facilities under which the police force operates on around the island. We really need to, given their hard work, given their dedication, given the long hours and days that they spend in these facilities, the working conditions and the environment, we need to upgrade it. We need to raise that standard. I'd like to see this because my visit to those stations is wanting. That's all the time we have at this section of the program. Viewers, stay with us. We'll be right back with Dr. Terence Walters talking about our preparations, the hurricane season coming. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The yard. Use a broom instead of a hose. Save water.
This awareness initiative is part of activities under the Climate Resilient Water sector in Grenada. The project is funded by the Green Climate Fund, the German government, and the government of Grenada.
Blast Gaming is where dreams come true and jackpots are won. Dive into a world of delightful experiences and daring action. From the moment you step through the doors, have the time of your life, feel the energy, soak in the excitement, and let the good times roll. Blast is more than just a place to play. It's where friends socialize, cocktails flow, and a safe space for those who dream big and dare to have fun while doing it. Blast Gaming. Know your limit, play within it. You must be 18 and over.
Ready to kickstart your morning the right way? The return of MTV's Rise and Shine morning show will help you do just that. Rise and Shine Grenada is coming back with a touch of fusion. Stay tuned for more.
Welcome back, viewers, to Community Forum. I'm your host, Byron Campbell. Of course, Chris Diali is with us, and he has joined us via Zoom. I'm here to introduce Dr. Terence R. Walters. Dr. Walters is a professional. He served the government of Grenada in several capacities for the past 35 years. He's been in education, drug prevention, disaster management, and public health. Dr. Walters has completed a PhD in public policy and administration, that's emergency management. He has achieved a Master of Public Health, a Bachelor of Science in Management Studies. Presently, of course, he is a disaster management practitioner and is currently the National Disaster Coordinator at the National Disaster Management Agency, NAGMA. Welcome to Community Forum again. You were here 11 months ago.
Yes.
I checked my records. It's amazing how time passed. And of course, Dr. Walters, we are in the hurricane season. Mm-hmm. Today is the 12th of June, so we are moving to 2 weeks in there. Of course, we're coming out from a major drought. Tell us, I want to go back to the drought a bit. What was the effects of the drought? I mean, what was the consequence of that? How did we manage this drought? How did we emerge from it? And what are the consequences like going forward?
Well, good evening. Thank you for having me again, and good evening to all the viewers and listeners wherever you are. Yeah. And only today I was telling someone that we have 5.5 months remaining in the hurricane season. Today I was saying that. But let's go to the drought, and so we had this long dry spell, which created some impacts for our farmers in some areas. Remember, not all over the country, but some areas it was worse than others. And the water situation. Okay, so the water situation created issues in quite a lot of parts of the country, especially the south. And so the drought created issues with agriculture and issues with water and water shortage. And NAWASA had to, some restrictions that they had to put in place so that people would conserve the little that we had. So yes, we did have a very serious situation there with that drought and water and agriculture.
But of course, we want to go into the hurricane season. I mean, we understand the climate change, all the issues. All the countries have been experiencing the highest temperature ever in history. But given all the situation, tell us about the projections. What's the focus, rather, for 2024? What are the expectations, you know? Of course, we're going to look at other aspects of it, but what is expected in this season coming?
Well, all of the institutions that give you predictions, and so they have gone for above normal or hyperactive, they call it, this year. So whereas the normal would be from between 12 and 14 named storms, this year they're going for between 23 and 26 and 20,
That's a lot.
up to 29, named storms, okay? So the predictions are really high in 2024, and we need to be mindful of that. Now, mind you, I always say that the predictions could be high, it could be low. It only takes one storm. So even if they predict one storm, okay, in 2024, we have to be as prepared as if they predict 24, because one storm is what it takes to devastate your country.
Ivan was one storm.
There we go, okay? So that's all it takes. So we have to be prepared at all times. And so I mean, while yes, we have to take into consideration the predictions on, you know, what they're saying, but we have to be prepared at all times, because it takes one.
Well, there's several levels of preparations. At your level, at the national level, the community level, and the individual level. How would you describe our preparation at that various levels? Where do you see Grenada in its preparation, disaster preparation, particularly for hurricanes?
Over the years, I've heard the question, how prepared is NAGMA?
Yeah.
But then how prepared are you?
Yeah. I didn't
All
call
right.
that.
No, some people ask,
Yes,
you know,
yes,
but how
yes.
prepared are you as an individual?
Yes.
Because if as an individual,
Yeah.
you take preparedness seriously, then your household, okay, you take it seriously at the household level. So
Yeah.
family disaster plans and so forth, families preparing.
Yeah.
And we extend that, because if you have all the families in a community well prepared, okay, then by extension you have the districts, the parishes, and the whole country prepared. So it begins with the individual, because NADMA, the head office as an institution, is always prepared to respond. There might be different levels, you might be more prepared for one hazard than another, but the organization, the agency, the entity is always prepared. But then now we are depending on the individuals, the families.
So
the
state of
communities.
readiness, scale of 1 to 10, where do you give our country? How do you grade us? Because of course you could compare it to other territories, but how do you, are you satisfied rather with our state of readiness in terms of preparedness for a disaster to the extent of Ivan, let's say?
So I don't like to give, like, you know, scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
like
why
to do
I withdraw that.
Right.
How do you describe our state of readiness?
But I think we are more prepared now than we were 20 years ago.
Yeah.
In terms of the institutions, in terms of the knowledge, in terms of the information that people have, or housing stock, okay, training, and so over the years, a lot of people have been exposed to training over the years, in shelter management, damage assessment. So we've exposed people to quite a lot of training. We have quite a lot of people across the country who are trained in different areas. Okay, so I think as compared to 20 years ago, we are a lot more prepared now, because people, and again, if we look at the information that is available, or readily available on your smartphone. And 20 years ago, we didn't have that.
So you think technology is going to make a difference? But there's a downside to the technology also, but we come to that. Chris,
yes.
Chris, are you there? Hey, Chris,
Very
are you
closely.
there?
Huh?
Chris, go ahead.
Yes, so Doc, I have a few questions for you on, I want to start with the forecast situation and the fact that they're predicting upper 20s or 20 to 25 systems coming through. My question is the probability, because we hear that we're moving into a La Nina situation where the possibility of these systems coming through would be more frequent. And we also hearing in the prediction that there are high-level troughs that are going to keep the systems low for us in this hurricane season. So from where you sit as a national organization in preparation, what is the thinking in terms of these systems coming through lower than normal, that you will have an La Nina situation, and how are we going to prepare for it if we are to get hit? Because not only getting a hurricane, we could get torrential downfall and rainfall that can cause serious damage as well. So your thoughts on that and the probabilities that we may see, are we high or low for getting systems coming through this year?
Well, we have to remember that it's a forecast, it's a prediction, and based on the circumstances, okay, based on what happens, then you could either revise it upward, downward, you know, depending on what happens. No, there's nothing that we can do to prevent the hydrometeorological events. There's nothing that we can do, all right, but prepare. That's all. We have to prepare, make sure we have the information, make sure we inform the public, make sure people are prepared, and then deal with the situation as they come. That's basically what we can do, but we cannot prevent these systems from coming and impacting us. We just can't prevent it. So that's where we are.
My other question is around the security aspect. When we look at when we got hit with Ivan, one of the major areas that we fell down on was security and securing particular places in particular businesses and what happened with the looting and so forth. So have we done considerable work to understand how we can better the situation if we were to have a system come through and create problems for us and head into disasters? How do we handle the security system? What is NADMA's take on that and how we plan to improve that?
Well, we have worked with the Royal Grenada Police Force, and they have learned some lessons from Hurricane Ivan and Emily. So they learned lessons in Hurricane Ivan and quickly put in place some plans. They were able to test it for Emily, although Emily was a Category 1 and not Category 3 or 4. Okay, so those plans, you know, that they've put in place afterward, and were able to test it for Emily. You know, those plans will be in place now. So, for example, there's what they call forward deployment, where they would deploy officers to certain key areas and to secure certain key installations that they think can be compromised. Okay, so you know, things like that, and there are other things that the security forces have done to ensure that we would be more secure, or security would be stronger if there is another Ivan, or even stronger, because Ivan was Category 3 and we can have a Category 4 or 5. So we have to be mindful of that.
Ivan was 3, wow.
With regards to your shelters and your district committees and so on, I would assume that they have all been activated and all the shelters have been inventories done to check their integrity and so on, and the committees for the shelters, all of that have now been activated because of the start of the hurricane season? And
yes, so we have done our shelter inspection. So all the shelters have been inspected, and we've released the list of shelters sometime last week, Monday. We released the list of shelters. And so we continue to ensure that we have the shelter teams in place. We know who the key holders are and all of that. Now, the Ministry of Education is head of the shelter committee. And that shelter, the whole issue of shelters, it's a big undertaking because you have 105 shelters.
It's a lot.
And each shelter, you need at least 10.
Whoa.
Okay, at least 10 per shelter. So it's a big undertaking, and that we continue to work on. You know, there would be weaknesses, there would be strengths, because like I say, we've trained quite a lot of people in shelter management, okay? So people know, actually, we have an exercise coming up where we would, you know, test and, you know, expose people.
These are volunteers,
volunteers,
of course?
all volunteers, okay, all volunteers. Yeah. And remember, we have not had a hurricane or a storm in
20 years.
20 years, okay? So again, right, so we have to continue doing exercises, you know, to ensure that people get a little practice, you know, then their knowledge is refreshed and all of that. So, but it's quite a big undertaking. Shelter
I heard about I heard the announcement when you were talking about the shelters in the previous program. And I think what I heard was that community persons who are using the shelters must come with their own supplies.
Yes.
But in an emergency, when you have to urgently evacuate your own home, unless you have it packed before. So the question is, what are the essential steps individuals and families should take to prepare for the hurricane season? What are the key things? Yeah.
And that's why I said at the very beginning,
Yeah.
we're starting with the individual,
Yeah.
then the family,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
your communities and so.
Yeah.
But we encourage people to be prepared at all times, year round, not just during hurricane season. Okay?
What are the essentials? And those are the key things,
Right.
Because we hear about prepared, but
So
we really prepare. That's the point.
That's it. That's it. So we urge people to have what is called a disaster supplies kit, okay, where you have some non-perishable
Don't wait
food.
until the announcement of a system.
Thank you. You can't wait until they announce, because then
I
everybody
should have a separate package of food,
Separate.
supplies.
Yes, separate things, and that's why we give the list: food, water, dry clothing, your battery-operated radio. Put your documents should be put away, things like that. We give a list of the things that you need to have, so that when you what they say is that you can have a grab and go bag kind of thing, so that okay, because normally when there's a storm or a hurricane, you have time. Normally you have, even though it's 12 hours, you have some time, okay, because like we had with Hurricane.
So that's why you see a
Thomas.
run on the supermarkets.
That's why we see that. Because a lot of people don't take it seriously. Okay, but you need to take this seriously. If we are to avoid what we see at the supermarkets whenever there's a storm watch or warning, we need to take it seriously, and not just during the hurricane season, but at all times.
The question about an emergency plan. You've talked about have an emergency plan. What is an emergency plan? What is this? What am I supposed to do? What does an emergency plan look like? Give me an example of a plan.
So what you need to do is to know the hazards that can impact you. If you live in Granatang, a tsunami would not impact you in Granatang.
Right. Okay.
Okay. But if you live in Grand Mall, close to the sea, you can be impacted by a tsunami. So you look at the hazards that can impact you, and you sit with your family and you say, this is what we are going to do if this happens. So if there's a hurricane and we know that, and we get the watch or the warning, okay, we would either move, or we can stay here because we think it's safe, or we go by Auntie Gemma in somewhere in Pedmota or that kind of thing. So that is what the family plan is all about, sitting with your family. And you can have a written plan, right? We encourage people to have a written plan. All right, some people do it verbally, but you can have a written plan. We encourage that. But sit with your family, look at the hazards that can impact you, and decide what you will do to prepare for these hazards. That's
the
your family
exercises
disaster
where
plan.
you train people to do this, your volunteers. I mean, because you might be saying, do a plan.
That's right.
Are we really doing this plan?
Yes.
That's the question.
And I must admit that there's we need to do some additional work. We have some entities, assisting at the community level, at the district level, with people to do their plans and so. But we need to do some more work in that area. But we encourage families to have their family disaster plan and their disaster supplies kit.
What should people do to stay safe during a hurricane? What is the advice here? Because that's kind of unknown. When do I evacuate my house? When do I leave? How do I know I'm uncertain what to do?
If you think your property is safe. So for example, you have a concrete roof, or you think your house is built, right? That's your first area of shelter. Okay? Your home. So we encourage people, your home is your first area of shelter. If you think your home is not safe, for any reason, you seek shelter with family or friends whom you think have a good structure. And if you can't find family or friends, then you go to the emergency shelter.
Let's go to NAGMA. Let's go to NAGMA for a little bit. NAGMA is the national organization dealing with all emergencies, disasters, natural disasters. But let's take hurricane, because that's what we have experienced as the largest disaster that the country experience. I mean, from Janet to Ivan. What is it? I remember in Ivan there was an issue of basic necessities post-Ivan that's available in terms of blankets, in terms of tents, in terms of tarpaulins, basic food stuff, shelter material. What is NAGMA preparation for that? What do you have? Are you networking with suppliers? Tell us a bit about the supply side, because you also, I'm to understand, will have a supply committee, something
Relief
like that.
supplies.
Relief
supplies.
supply.
Yes.
Tell us about that aspect, because that's where we had major pain coming out of Ivan. There was, yeah.
So we don't stockpile. As an agency, we don't stockpile lumber and galvanize and food. And, right, so we don't stockpile.
Okay.
All right. So we would depend on the local suppliers and regional and international. We would depend on, regional, international, depending on the scale of the incident. Now, that is why we say to people, have a disaster supplies kit that can last you at least 3 days. Food and other items, all right? Food and other items, other items that for survival.
Yeah.
Right, and non-electric can open my radio, that kind of thing. Right, those supplies. We encourage you to have those supplies and things that can
would have a
last you.
list, advising on a list somewhere?
Of course, yes, yeah.
You have
public.
a website that we
public.
can get this information from?
No, it's on Facebook.
It's on Facebook,
and,
yeah.
Yes, okay.
Right.
So you can get the information. And it's on television. We have various ads and so forth where you can get the list, okay? But we do not stockpile. We will have to depend on region. So our sub-regional focal point is Trinidad and Tobago. All right, Trinidad and Tobago in the CDMS system.
Right, yes.
So our focal point, Trinidad and Tobago. That's why after Ivan, Trinidad and Tobago was the first to be on the ground.
Yeah.
So that's our sub-regional focal point. Something happens in Grenada, but then again, remember, for Trinidad to come in, it would take a couple of days. They wouldn't be here immediately. So we encourage people to be prepared to survive for a couple of days. That is why we encourage people to be prepared to survive, because NADMA does not stockpile stuff so that, if something happens, next morning we can distribute to the whole country. It doesn't work like that. What we
found with supplies too, is that particularly some people get all, some people don't get, the distribution. How do you ensure that it's even? You depend on your volunteers for this. How do you assess post? Because one of the first things I understand that you have to do post the disaster is to do an assessment.
Yes.
So what is you have an assessment team, technical team set up to do this? Tell us about it. How is this?
So there are the different levels of assessment. You have the initial damage assessment, and you have the whole.
You have drones. You can use drones now. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
you have drones in NAGMA.
No, we do not have drones.
But this is
NAGMA.
something that you can deal with.
And it's something that we intend to.
Yeah.
From the regional, they can come in with drones and help with the assessment.
Yes.
So we have that capability that we can access.
Yeah.
Okay, so some of that. So we have to do the assessment,
Yeah.
and then we have our district teams
Yeah.
that we depend on to because they would have information before. So we work with entities like the Red Cross and Caritas and YAC and a number of other local entities that will assist. Okay, along with our district committees, we have 17 of them across the country.
Wow.
Okay, so that these district committees will get the information from the community and say, okay, these are the people that need, this is where we go. Now, mind you, it may not always be, and it will not always be fair, because you might think this person is getting more, that person is getting more, and these things do happen. All right, they do happen. We would hope that they won't happen, but they do happen, okay? I would not just come and say to the population, it will not happen. If it would be fair for everybody, right? Because things will happen, okay? But we expect it to be fair. We want it to be fair, and that's why we depend on our volunteers to give us the good information, so that when we distribute, okay, the people who need it most will get it and get it first, and they would be serviced.
We had Chris, when you come back, I'll go to you. I have to take a short break now. Viewers, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Blast Gaming is where dreams come true and jackpots are won. Dive into a world of delightful experiences and daring action. from the moment you step through the doors. Have the time of your life. Feel the energy, soak in the excitement, and let the good times roll. Blast is more than just a place to play. It's where friends socialize, cocktails flow, and a safe space for those who dream big and dare to have fun while doing it. Blast Gaming. Know your limit, play within it. You must be 18 and over.
The laundry, always do a full load. Save water.
This awareness initiative is part of activities under the climate resilient water sector in Grenada. The project is funded by the Green Climate Fund, the German government, and the government of Grenada.
Welcome back, viewers, to Community Forum. We're here with Dr. Terence Walters. He's a National Disaster Coordinator. Chris.
Thank you.
Great.
I have some questions for Doc. Doc, my area is questions that is going to concern your interaction with the business community, and I want to take it from a couple angles. First of all, a lot of us in the business community have very detailed disaster preparedness and recovery plans. And of course, business community is a major player when it comes to supplies and food and making sure that we have enough with a pending disaster or a pending system coming through that may create a disaster. The question to you is, what has been your committee's interaction with the business community to deal with these issues that after Ivan we saw were so critical?
So the chamber is part of the National Emergency Advisory Council.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a representative from the chamber, and we have representatives from all the utility companies, the fuel companies. So because we can't have every business at the National Emergency Advisory Council. So we have the chamber, we have the GHTA, you know, so these entities are represented on the National Emergency Advisory Council, so that when there's anything happening, okay, any activity, any event, okay, we have the direct contact with the business community. So the other day when we had the issue with the water, all right, we were able to have a meeting with the members of the chamber and other business entities, and we had, I think it was over 100 entities attending. It was a Zoom meeting. All right, so we have you know, very good interaction. One of the things we need to strengthen is you know, our MOU in terms of you know, the supplies that we can get okay, after an emergency or a disaster. So we need to strengthen that area. But there's very good interaction, good communication with the business community, I must say.
So, could I assume, Doc, that you are going to encourage the chamber, the GHT, whoever, to meet with the business community and yourselves to understand their plans and how are they prepared to deal with something if it isn't a disaster?
All right, and yes, I think, I mean, what you're suggesting is a good idea for us to, have meetings with the business community about that. But then again, we have the business community represented at the NEAC meetings whenever we meet.
Yeah, but the representatives is just there to understand what is happening at the national. I'm talking about actually interacting with the business community to understand their level of preparedness. That's just you in a situation if they have a disaster. Because Ivan, the business community took the lead in bringing the community back up as quickly as possible in various areas. So that is what I'm driving at.
Yes, and I think that is I mean, very good suggestion here, and something that we should take on board to ensure that we meet directly with the business community to have those discussions. Okay, so yes, thank you for that, Chris. Yes.
I want to go to the issue of communication, because after our experience at Ivan, communication was so vital for families to stay in touch with their loved ones outside of the country, within the country, and so on. And cell phone usage was a major part of that communication apparatus. Have we done inspections of our tower, met with our providers to understand what are they prepared to offer so that people have cell phone use before and after, post the system, to understand what is going to happen? And I heard about the drones. I think that's an excellent idea. I know our security forces have access. So are we tapping and going into to understand how we could get communication? And communication is here, I'm referring, is not only about the use of cell phones and so on, but in terms of transport, how are we mobilizing the business community, those with the heavy equipment? And I know you have committees that look at that, so that we can get roads cleared and get back to moving people and getting stuff around the country in terms of vehicles, security vehicles and so on. What's the plans around that general communications?
So in terms of communication with the service providers and so forth, okay, so they are part of the National Emergency Advisory Council, and I know that they have taken steps to ensure that over in the last 20 years, to ensure that they enhance their operations so that people can have access before. Maybe during, who knows, right? Yeah. But definitely after. Okay, so there are contingencies in place for that. But what we've done is we've also encouraged satellite phones. Yeah. Because if everything is down, I mean, because sometimes, I mean, it depends on the nature of the event. All right, you're so badly hit that, I mean, there's nothing you could do. Nothing works, yeah. Right? But we have quite a number of entities have satellite phones. NADMA and government, we've deployed some satellite phones to some of the key entities like the Governor General, Prime Minister, NADMA office. Karakou has one, PT Martinique has one, Coast Guard, and right? These entities have those facilities that they can use. In terms of the transport and clearing roads and so forth, remember we have those committees that are responsible for those areas, and the Ministry of Infrastructure, okay, has they have a structure in place where they know where all the heavy equipment, where all of that is located across the country. They have road officers across the country, and then they would immediately begin to tap into those resources to get roads cleared, to get people moving and all of that. So there's that committee that exists. So the National Emergency Advisory Council is a comprehensive committee that takes into consideration all the areas. There's security, there's shelter, there's transport and road clearance, there's health. So the coordination there, it's a lot, but because you have all the committees coming together to address all the issues, okay, across the country, I think we've learned a lot from Ivan, and if we were impacted now or going forward, we'd have a better response.
I want to follow.
Go ahead, Chris. Sorry, Byron.
Go ahead, Chris.
is post a disaster and all the work we have to do with cleanup and so on. One of the things that affected us significantly after Ivan was the trauma and psychological effects that it had on our people and how we dealt with particularly our elderly. Is there special consideration being given to looking at that and possibly over what time frame to deal with the trauma and psychological effects of our people so that we don't see issues of breakage and fear and so on? Is there any consideration in one of your committees on how we deal with that from a psychomedical point of view?
So again, social development,
Yeah.
all right, is part of the National Emergency Advisory Council. And we've trained quite a lot of people over the years in psychosocial support. The Grenada Red Cross and other entities have been training people. So there are quite a number of, now some are trained at higher level than others. Some just have basic training, but sometimes the people with the basic training can create some level of impact. So there are a lot of people, and there are counselors in the Ministry of Education and other areas who can provide some level of psychosocial support. Now, we may not be able to provide for everybody right after the event,
Yeah.
but because we have people there who can do it, like go into shelters, go into different areas and provide that level of support, in the days or the weeks after the event,
Yeah.
I think we're at a better place now.
Excellent. One of the things that I thought about is information. Information in a disaster must be accurate and reliable. The use of social media, particularly during an emergency, could be positive. Yeah, but the information, is there a concern, particularly in the age of AI, but in the case of fabrication, particularly in social media? What is NAGMA position, what is NAGMA advice on this to avoid just going for what is false?
Now, the information is available.
Yeah.
And it's available everywhere.
Yeah.
And everybody have access to the information.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So we encourage people to, go out there, get the information. All right? Make sure you have information, you know what is happening. But the official source for disaster-related information in Grenada is NADMA. Okay?
Yeah.
So whatever is happening, wherever you get the information, so for example, NOAA and the other sites will give information about the hurricane, about what's happening, but they would give it on a regional context. Then our Met Office will provide the information, will take that information, okay, and tailor it to suit our locality, and NADMA will send it out. So we encourage people, while you have access, while you can get the information, wherever the information is available, NADMA is the official source. Now, there are the bad actors who will want to use the information and who will want to create panic and who will want to, so we urge people to verify the information before you forward it. Right? You might see something. So for example, we've had some events in recent times, and people took videos from 3, 4, 5 years ago and started sharing it. Okay, so verify the information before you share with others, right? And so the most we can do is encourage people to go to the source, which is the National Disaster Management Agency, and we will do our best to ensure that you have the information first. All right, whatever is happening, and we will send out the information, we will inform people. We have like WhatsApp groups, we have a broadcast list, we have our Facebook page, the government website, we will send out the information.
Or would people being able to communicate directly with NAGMA or the emergency services? Who do they communicate to? NAGMA here during an emergency? What's the protocol here?
Now, again, it all depends on what is happening, right?
Yeah.
So if there's a hurricane approaching, now everybody would be calling.
Yeah.
So we do not have the capacity to deal with 1,000, 3,000 people calling at the same time, that kind of thing. So, but the district committees, okay, the district committees will be available. Okay, and then because it's before the event, so radio, television, Facebook, whatever is available, we would use before the event, and then after the event again is what is available. But you have to be mindful of that. What is available after the event? So we can't say to you now that after the event all radio stations will be up or all TV stations will be up, because we do not know. Okay, you have no idea as to what is going to happen. So
Chris, you have any final question for Dr. Walters? I'm not here.
Sorry about that, Byron. I was on mute. I do have a final question.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. In the months coming up, Doc, I'm going to assume that the public programs from NADMA is going to increase in frequency, especially in dealing with personal preparations by individual and what the emergency kits must look like, and particularly in medication for those of us who have issues with different sort of medical events, that we prepare for it. But also the question of how the shelters are going to prepare for those who are differently abled and how they can be taken care of in the shelters. Are there ways and means that we're going to be doing and stepping up and looking as the months come up and we get deeper into the hurricane season? And as I end, I want to tell you, Doc, that I am impressed with your new facility at Monjaloo, and I am hoping that you take care of all the families of your officers that will be there, because you won't have them available if you can't take care of their families.
All right, so thanks for that, and yes, we appreciate the new facility, okay,
yes.
and the officers who will be there and their families, and so in terms of the frequency, the information, yes, we will continue that, but what we've done for persons who are differently abled, it's a work in progress. So we have some schools, some of the shelters have ramps, have facilities for persons with disabilities. So it's not every, because remember, it's schools, churches, community centers. So not all of them are outfitted, okay, but some of them are, and we continue to make efforts to outfit even more with those facilities. We have one vehicle that can carry, persons on wheelchair, so it can carry 8 wheelchairs. I know that the hospital has, the Ministry of Education has some of those vehicles. So we have a few vehicles on island that we can transport persons who are using wheelchairs. So again, I mean, we do have some, wheelchairs and walkers and so forth, at the agency that we can use. But it's a work in progress, and we continue to work to improve, to enhance, okay, to enhance our facilities, enhance the services we provide for the people, because we know disaster management, it's a difficult time. It's a difficult period when you're dealing with a disaster, you're dealing with a hazard, you're dealing with losing your house, losing a loved one, losing your property. It is difficult, okay? But we have to continue to work together to ensure people get the services that they require.
Any final closing comment, Doc?
Preparedness. I encourage people to be prepared. Your disaster supplies kit, in terms of having some food, some water, some different things in place, right? You do not have to do all at one time. So don't think you need to have $1,000 and $2,000 to do this, right? Every week, every month, you go to the supermarket, you buy something. You go to the pharmacy, you buy an item, 2 items. You take it, in strides, and you get it done over time. So sometimes we want to do everything at one time, and you never get it done. But you take it in strides and you get it done. So preparedness is key. Individuals, families, key to being safe during and after those emergencies.
Thank you very much, Dr. Walters. Appreciate for coming with us. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here with us. Chris, thank you very much. Have a safe journey back to Grenada. We thank the viewers for being with us this evening. I want to thank
you, Doc.
Technical staff for being with us. Thank you very much. And we'll see you next week, same time, same place.
Thanks.
Good night all. Bye-bye.